Welcome to day 3 of our review for the SBAC test. This is expressions, and let's look at this first section on the left. Let's scooch in a little bit on this so we can see it better. Okay, this is properties of operations. So operations, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And there's certain properties, and properties are just rules that mathematicians have agreed upon. And these properties make equivalent expressions. So if we look at the first one, the identity property says you can add 0 to something and it's not going to change. So 8 plus 0 is the same thing as 8. The commutative property means you can move things around when you're multiplying or adding, and it doesn't change the value. So 6 times 3 is 18, times 2 is 36. If you change the order, 6 times 2 is 12, times 3 is 36, and that only works for adding and multiplying. The associative property means you can group things together when you're adding or multiplying, and it doesn't change the value. So 4 plus 1 is 5, 5 plus 5 is 10. Or over here, if you group the 5 and the 4 together, that's 9. 9 plus 1 is still 10. Those are equal. The distributive property says if you have a number out here, and that means multiply. When you have a number next to parentheses like that, you have to distribute that multiplication to both terms in here. So this is going to be 3x plus 3 times 2. So it equals 3x plus 6, because 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 2. Another important rule with expressions is that the reciprocal of a number, and the reciprocal is what you get when you flip something. So if you had 1/3 and you flip it, you get 3/1. If you have 2/5 and you flip it, the reciprocal is 5/2. The reciprocal of a number results in a product of 1, and product is the answer when you multiply. So it's probably easiest if we look at an example. 2/3 times the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2 when you flip it. 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6, 6/6 equals 1. So whenever you multiply reciprocals together, you're going to get 1. Okay, next section, the vocabulary in algebra and expressions. If you look at this isn't an equation because there's no equal sign. Expressions don't have equal signs. 4x plus 7 squared minus 10. The terms in here, there's 3 terms. 4x is a term, 7 squared is a term, 10 is a term. There's only one variable, and variable is a letter. So in this expression, there's only one variable, and it's x. Coefficient, that's a number that's in front of a variable, in front of a letter, and there's only one, and that's 4. An exponent, it's that, 7 squared, or 7 to the 2nd power. The exponent is 2 in this expression. And a constant. A constant is a number that's constantly the same thing. So 4x can change depending on what x is. 10 is a number all by itself, so that is called a constant. And operations are add, subtract, multiply, and divide. In this expression, there's adding and subtracting, so plus and minus are the operations here. Okay, next let's look at expressions versus equations. An expression, if you had 5 less than a number, you don't have an equal sign. If you wanted to make that an equation, you could say 5 less than a number equals 10, and now that's an equation. It has an equal sign in it. And because this is confusing wording that always bears a little bit of repeating, 5 less than a number, first you take a number like x, and 5 less than that is minus 5. So 5 less than a number translates into x minus 5. And if you want to make that an equation, x minus 5 equals 10. Here's another expression, 4 plus 7. It's a numeric expression because it just has numbers in it, no letters. This is an algebraic expression because it has a variable in it. To make 4 plus 7 into an equation, you could do something like 4 plus 7 equals q. Okay. Last but certainly not least, the order of operations. So there's a certain order that mathematicians have agreed upon to go into. You must follow those rules if you want to get the same answer as other people. You always do parentheses first, and then exponents, and then multiply and divide left to right. So if you're going left to right and division comes first, you do division before multiplication. Then you finish up all the multiplication and division going left to right in your expression or equation. And then adding and subtracting, you also go left to right. So if subtracting is to the left of some adding, you're going to do that before the adding. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Sorry, I'm having trouble zooming this today. Okay, 6 squared minus 9 divided by 3 times 4. So we don't have any parentheses, but we have an exponent, so that happens first. 6 squared we deal with first, and we just do that one thing. So that's 36. Everything else comes straight down. Minus 9 divided by 3 times 4. Now we've got subtract, divide, multiply. And multiply and divide you do first, left to right. So we're going to divide 9 divided by 3. That's all we do. That's 3. Everything else comes straight down. 36 minus 3 times 4. Now we have subtract and multiply. Multiply goes first. That becomes 12. 3 times 4 is 12. 36 minus 12 is 24. Okay, next example. 14 plus 6 times the quantity of 8 divided by 2 minus 5. So we do have parentheses this time, so that happens first. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So you rewrite it, everything's the same except that 8 divided by 2 is 4. 14 plus 6 times 4 minus 5. Now you have add, and now that there's nothing to do in that parentheses, that's just multiply. So add, multiply, subtract. Multiply becomes before adding and subtracting. So you do that first. That's 24. 14 plus 24 minus 5. Now we add and subtract left to right, and this is on the left. So 14 plus 24 is 38, and we bring down that minus 5, and 38 minus 5 is 33. And that is our quick review of expressions.